So did you have a great Thanksgiving? How many of you would say you had a great Thanksgiving? How many of you would say you had a Thanksgiving? Well, hey, that's okay. I went and saw The Good Dinosaur on Friday. And I don't know if the dinosaur was the dinosaur or if it was the little boy that he took around. Because that little boy, have you seen the trailers for this movie? Like, the little boy acts like a little monster. And all I could think was that they had typecast my son Jonathan for that role. Like, he just acted exactly like him. But, well, I hope you had a good Thanksgiving. One of the first jobs I had, and one of the jobs that I used to do a lot, was work in restaurants. I used to be a host. I used to be a server in a couple of restaurants. And if there's just one job that I think everyone should have to work, it's in food services. I think everyone should have to do at least a year in food services. One, because I think it teaches you how to work really hard and get nothing. But two, I think it helps us to understand exactly how we should tip people who work in that industry. A lot of people don't know this, but people in food services don't make minimum wage. They don't make minimum wage. There's a whole different minimum wage scale depending on what state you're in. When I was in Illinois, I made $3.09 an hour as a server. Because the idea is you're going to get tips, and the tips are going to make up the rest of your paycheck. And so, it's really important because workers are counting on those tips to tip them. It's good to give them a tip if they do a good job, but I think it's important to give them a tip even if they do a bad job. And let me tell you why. One is, I think everyone's entitled to have a bad day, don't you? Like, how many of you work a job that's not in food services? Okay, do you still get paid if you have a bad day? Yeah, most any other job, you still get paid if you have a bad day. You work in the restaurant industry, know that you're going to go hungry, right? I think that people are entitled to have a bad day or two. But two, sometimes we don't tip a server because something went bad at the restaurant, but the server had nothing to do with it. It's probably not their fault that the food came out wrong. It's probably not their fault that the food was burned or that that the cook still put, maybe, like for me, I can't have nuts on something, and every time I order something, they have to take it back and take the nuts off it because someone in the kitchen forgets and they just put the nuts on it because that's what they're used to doing. Sometimes we punish the server for something that wasn't even in their control. Other times, though, I think we should just tip because I don't know about you, but I'm a Christian. And I think as a Christian, I care about people. And I just want to be generous to them. God's generous to me, isn't he? How many times do I not deserve, let's call it a tip from God? I don't deserve a lot from God, but yet God never stops being good to me. I think that it's a bad sign when Christians go into a restaurant and they stiff their server. And I can't tell you, I've been reading news articles lately. Have you seen these things on Facebook where it's like a pastor goes into the restaurant and says, no, I'm not going to tip you? Or he'll say, oh, well, I give God 10%, so why would I give you 15? And it's like, well, because apparently you're a jerk. That's why you're doing that. Like, there's this attitude that Christians have had that's not been good about it. But I think, man, if we're Christians, that's what we are, is we're generous. And so I think it's important to tip people no matter what happens. But one of the things I think is strange is that in some places, they're automatically adding gratuity to your bill. Have you ever noticed that? Have you ever gone to a restaurant, they're like, oh yeah, and there's the 15% at the bottom of your bill. And I understand doing that maybe for a large party, because if you have like 20 people come in, that's going to take up 3 or 4 tables, and that's 3 or 4 tables that person maybe isn't going to get tipped from. They're going to have to miss out on other tables. So I understand maybe doing it in a large group, but they're even adding mandatory gratuity on individuals, on just personal tables. And I think that's a weird thing to have mandatory gratuity, because the whole idea of gratuity to me is that it's a sign of my appreciation. It's not required. It's something that I do above and beyond what the cost of the bill is. Whenever you add it into the bill, it's not gratuity anymore. It's just a charge at that point. And so I just think it's weird that we're having forced gratuity, because gratitude is only gratitude when it's a choice. No one should make you express gratitude. Now, I say this, and I said that everyone should work in food services to learn how to tip and express gratitude. But when I think about that concept of gratitude, I think sometimes I need to go back into food services. I think I need to go back and relearn these lessons. Today I want to talk to you about the genius of gratitude. And everyone has strengths and weaknesses, but man, if there's a weakness I have, it's gratitude. I struggle with the concept of being thankful. I struggle to be thankful. I struggle receiving thanks. I don't know if any of you are like that, where people say thank you and you kind of get all squirmy and you don't like it. It makes you uncomfortable when people are thanking you. When I first started preaching, people would thank me for my preaching. And after church, they would tell me, what a good job I did. And I would say to them, and maybe I've said it to you, no, it wasn't that good. Or you go, oh, you're just saying that. Or you don't really think that. And this was actually a bad habit of mine I picked up in Bible college. Professors would joke all the time about how people at the end of a sermon would say, good sermon. That was like, they said it like that's what people have to say just in order to get out of church. They're walking out and the pastor's at the door. Oh, there's a pastor. What do we do? Is there another exit? He sees us. We got to just walk up. Oh, what am I going to say? Good sermon. And then they leave, right? Like that's what they would talk like. That's what they would say. And it was unfortunate that that's what I learned in Bible college, because people had some genuine nice things to say, and I just couldn't bring myself to accept their gratitude. I just couldn't do it. But I don't just have trouble receiving things. I have trouble giving things. I have trouble expressing gratitude. And it's not that I'm not grateful. I'm grateful. I just don't know how to say it. I'm really bad at that part. When I was in New Mexico, I started playing golf, and I've never been a good golfer, but I just like to golf. It's just something I do that relaxes me. But I never had clubs. I couldn't afford them. And so I would always borrow a friend of mine's golf clubs. I'd call him up, and he'd give me his garage code, and I'd go in his garage. I'd get his golf clubs and go golf. And I remember this one time I was out at the range with a couple of friends. We were just practicing, and they surprised me with my very own set of golf clubs. Just different people in the church had pitched in money secretly to give me a set of golf clubs. And that was a big deal because golf clubs aren't cheap. Like even the cheap golf clubs aren't cheap. And I remember when I got these golf clubs, I just didn't know what to say. In fact, I didn't say anything. I just stood there looking at them for like 5 minutes. It felt like 5 minutes at least. I was just looking at them. And I was just trying to wrap my mind around the idea that I now own golf clubs. I was like, so they're mine? They're for me? Or am I borrowing these now instead of Ken's? And then the other part of it was I just didn't know how to just say the words, say thank you. And it was such an awkward silence. Like it went on for a long time that someone finally said, so what do you think? I it was like, no, sorry, thank you. I didn't know what to do. But really when I think about, there's things that you look back on your life and you look back on what you do. If there's any one regret I have in my ministry and just in my life, it's that I regret just not being better with gratitude, both receiving gratitude and expressing gratitude. In fact, I think gratitude is just a necessary part of our faith. And really, if I were to amend any two passages in the Bible, and I don't recommend doing that, like I don't want you to leave here and say, hey, you said we could change this thing. No, you don't change the Bible changes you. But if I could change any two passages in the Bible, the first one would be in 1 Corinthians 13, which is the love passage. Love is patient, love is kind, love is gentle, love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things. Love never fails. There's a couple other loves in there. But what I would add to it is love is grateful. And the other passage I would change is in Galatians chapter 5, where it talks about the fruit of the Spirit. You know your fruit of the Spirit? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. I would add gratefulness. I would add gratefulness to the fruit of the Spirit. To me, gratitude is a natural part of our faith. In fact, without it, I don't think you can have an actual saving experience with Jesus. I don't think you can. I don't think you can know what salvation is without gratitude. Think about it. Like, you ever see someone get saved from a fire and be like, thanks? Like, no, you have to know what gratitude is. You have to understand what's going on. I mean, it's my recognition of what Jesus has done for me that drives me to him, that changes me. I mean, how can I not follow him with what he's done for me? But you know, even though Jesus has impacted my life and the lives of so many others, I feel like we just don't understand gratitude. And in the book of Luke, Luke actually tells a story about this. In Luke chapter 17, it says that while Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem, he was passing between Samaria and Galilee, and he entered a village. And as he entered a village, 10 leprous men who stood at a distance met him. And they raised their voices, saying, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. And when he saw them, he said to them, Go and show yourselves to the priests. And then as they were going, they were cleansed, they were healed. Now one of them, when he saw that he had been healed, turned back, glorifying God with a loud voice, and he fell at Jesus' feet, giving thanks to him. And he was a Samaritan. And then Jesus answered and said, Were there not 10 cleansed? But the 9, where are they? Was no one found who returned to give glory to God except this foreigner? And he said to him, Stand up and go. Your faith has made you well. Check that out. Gratitude. It's a part of faith. I mean, just so you have an idea of the context of this passage, let me break it down for you. Leprosy is an incredibly painful disease, and it's an incredibly contagious disease that was then untreatable. And so lepers were usually kept in these colonies so that people wouldn't catch the disease. It was basically a way of trying to isolate people so that they wouldn't give it to anyone else. And anytime anyone else would come near a leper, they had to shout, unclean, unclean. And so sometimes I jokingly do that, like if I'm sick and people say, Hey, Dave, I'm like, unclean, unclean, don't come near me. I don't want you to catch this. But the hope was that by isolation, the people would either get better or they would die. Like those were the two options you had with leprosy. And so, if they got better, they would go to a priest. And the priest was kind of like a representative, a public voice for the people, and the priest would then give them a clean bill of health. More often, though, people died. Because when you'd go to the leper camp, you were with other lepers. And when you're with other lepers, you just keep each other sick. And so these lepers decided to leave the camp, which was risky in itself. You could be punished for that. But they decided to leave the camp, to risk leaving, and go see Jesus. And it says Jesus heals them. It says he tells them to go show themselves to the priest so they could be readmitted back into society. But as they're going, what happens? Only one turns back. And the guy who turns back is a Samaritan. He's not one of God's people. Samaritans weren't God's people. They were basically considered half-breeds. They were half Jewish, half Gentile. They tried to worship God, but they weren't worshiping God according to the way that God had said to be worshipped. So these were people who were doing it wrong. And yet it's one of these people who turned back. It wasn't one of God's people. It wasn't one of the believers. It wasn't one of the people who should have known better. It was the guy who shouldn't have known any better. And this story bothers me. But it doesn't bother me because the 9 didn't turn back. It bothers me because when I think about them, I realize I'm not really any different. I'm not any different than the 9. I mean, Jesus has saved me over and over again. And I can't figure out how to just be thankful. And I worry sometimes that here we are, we're here, we're the church of Jesus. We've been saved, we know these things, but we still don't know how to express gratitude. we need to figure out how to just be thankful people. Thankful to God, thankful to each other, and just accepting of the gratitude in each other. And let me tell you why. For one, it's just good for us. You know, people who aren't grateful and don't express gratitude, you know what they begin to think? They begin to think that they deserve whatever they get. You know, like someone who doesn't say thank you thinks that whatever people do for them, that's expected. Well, what else would you do? The minimum is your best to me. And so really, we just get proud. We get cocky. We think that we deserve more than we do. And the reality is we just need to get knocked down a notch or two. You know, we shouldn't expect kindness. That's the great thing about kindness, is it goes beyond. It's not just being polite. It goes beyond. It does something good for me that someone didn't have to do. And so thankfulness helps us to stay humble. So someone went out of their way for our sake. But not only is gratitude good for us, but gratitude's just good for other people. I mean, it is. Gratitude's good for other people. I mean, what happens when we don't express gratitude is we don't encourage those people who've helped us, you know? Have you ever done something for someone and they just seem to not care? Like, how does that make you feel? Not doing that again, right? But we do the same thing. When we don't say thank you, we do the same thing. People do something for us, we don't thank them, and they think, well, why did I even do it? Why did I even bother? Well, what was the point of that? And so the next time that an opportunity comes up for them to do good, what do? They don't jump in because they don't see how it helped. It didn't help before. Why is it going to help this time? But man, when you do express gratitude, like there's only two extremes that happen with gratitude, right? Like there's either, well, I'm not doing that again, or man, I got to do that again, right? Like I remember this one woman, she gave me a thank you card, and in it she stuck a $25 gift card. And so I sat down and I wrote her a thank you note, and I gave it to her. And the next week I saw her, she came back and handed me another card with another gift card in it. She just loved my letter so much that she just wanted to keep giving me stuff. So I wrote her another thank you card. I'm like, hey, you know, let's see if I get more stuff. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that so that you can try to get more stuff. I'm just saying that when you thank people and you actually express gratitude, they want to do that again, whether they do it for you or whether they do it for someone else. Like when you just are thankful, people are like, man, I made a difference in someone's life. I want to do that again. And just tell me, like when you've made that difference in someone's life and you've seen the impact, what's that do to you? I mean, I just think about, you know, even with what we've just done for Liberty Way. I mean, I know how appreciative they are of us. It's like, man, I can't wait to give them another meal. I can't wait to do this again. You know, it's contagious. Gratitude just inspires us. Now, that's easy to say, but I think it's hard to do because, again, we struggle with gratitude. And I think there's a couple reasons why we struggle with gratitude. One reason is, and if we're just honest, sometimes it's just we're selfish. You know, we get in the idea that we deserve what we're getting. But other times, I think we don't express gratitude out of some false sense of humility. You know, we don't think we're worth the effort, or we're just uncomfortable thinking that anyone would praise us or that anyone would do anything for us. Peter had this trouble. Jesus in John chapter 13 is trying to wash the disciples' feet. He has put on a servant's garment, and he's going around washing everyone's feet. And he gets to Peter, and Peter says to Jesus, "You're not touching my feet." He says, "You're not going to wash my feet." Washing feet back then was the lowest job you could do. Touching someone's foot meant that you were beneath their feet, that you were worse than them in every single way. And so Peter, he's like, whoa, wait a second. Jesus, you cannot wash my feet. There's no way that you're below me. When I was in Bible college, I led a spiritual formation group, and I had to do a project with the freshmen where they learned something about service. And so what we had them do is we had them wash each other's feet. And when we did it, something really interesting happened. All of them were willing to wash feet, but not one of them was willing to have their feet washed. Not one of them. And that was actually the point of the lesson. You know, we think it's in some sense of humility that we're saying, no one should serve me. But the reality is we have a lot of pride. Sometimes we're like Peter and we let this pride get in the way, in which that says, I can only help others, but others can't help me. And somehow we think we're better than receiving help. We think we're better than receiving help. I watched a social experiment where a man pretended to be homeless, and as people came by, he tried to give them money. And he was just trying to see how would people react if help went the other way. But what was crazy was how many people were offended that he would offer to help them. People physically assaulted this guy. They pushed him, they threw the money in his face, and they said in so many words, because I can't repeat them here, I don't need your money. Think about that for a minute. What's that say about us? So what's that say about us when we won't let people serve us? What does that say about us when we will give help, but we won't take it? Not only are we above getting help, but it shows that we really look down on people who need help. That's what it shows. I'm helping you because I'm better. I'm better off. I'm in a better position. I'm not someone who needs help. But no one will help me because I'm better than that. And I feel that whole attitude defeats the whole point of Christianity. Don't you? I mean, what's the basic thing about Christianity? That God helps us. Why? Because we cannot help ourselves. How many people here can save yourself from sin? That's the right answer. None of us. None of us. There's nothing I can do to fix my situation. I'm dead in my transgressions and sin. There's nothing I can do. I can't save myself. I don't have the strength. I don't have the power. I don't have the ability. I need Jesus to help me. I need him to serve me. I need him to do this for me. That's the base quality of our faith, is I can't do it. And then we look at other people and say, no, but I got this. Why are we above this? Why do we reject this? Why do we say no to people helping us? Listen, it's just as important to let others serve you as it is for you to serve them. Peter was wrong. He was wrong to reject Jesus' service. He should have just said thank you. And when I say this, I'm a total hypocrite. But when people help you, you just need to learn to say thank you. I mean, that's just it. Don't deny someone an opportunity to do good. They need it, and honestly, you need it too. And so let me give you some ideas just how to express gratitude. And the first is just to say thank you. There's a lot of ways you can do this. I was reading Dr. Seuss's Green Eggs and Ham recently, so I was thinking I would not do it on a bus, I would not do it on a bus, or I don't know how it all goes. I didn't memorize the book, but you get the idea. You know, we don't want to do this gratitude thing, but man, do it all the time. Do it everywhere. I mean, you could call people, say thank you. You could just go up to people, say thank you. You could text them thank you, email them thank you, write a Facebook thank you, whatever. Personally, I think the best thank yous come in handwritten notes. It got me extra gift cards. I don't know what it is about a handwritten note, but dude, a handwritten note does something that no other type of thank you does. I can't explain it. Just try it. Someone does something for you, write them a thank you note. And I don't mean like the Christmas cards that we write back when after we get our gifts, like, hey, thanks for the stuff. I mean, just write someone a thank you note, a real thank you note, and just see what that does to them. It's amazing. 2, I'd say, don't just say thank you, but say thank you over and over and over again. Just do it all the time. We live in a world of criticism. Have you gathered that yet? Like, can you name any one issue or person that, for as many people as are for them, that there's not just as many against them? Like, that's our whole world, is we live on sides. And it's kind of depressing, isn't it? I'd just like to hear what people are for a change. But man, there's 10,000 places people can go to hear what's wrong with them. But what they're not hearing is what's right with them. You know? People need to hear what's right with them. You know, I don't know many people who hear, I think you're doing a great job. Or, wow, I just love the way that you do this. Or I just love the way that you treat people. I just love the way that you act. I just love how you make me laugh. You know, there's so many ways that people do things for each other, but we never say it to them. And criticism just takes its toll on people. It takes 10 compliments to undo one criticism. You know? It takes 10 compliments to undo one criticism. And so make sure that if there's something you see someone doing well, don't think, oh, well, other people will tell them. Because they're thinking the same thing. Just go tell them. Just go up to people and say, hey, thanks for what you're doing. And just see how it changes people. Gratitude can be life-saving. But the last thing I want to tell you to do is to start gossiping. And I know that's not typically the kind of message you hear from pastors. We're usually trying to get you to stop gossiping. But I want you to start gossiping. But I want you to start gossiping about the good things that people do. You know, a person may not believe you when you're thankful to their face. You know what I mean? And you've probably experienced that. People are trying to be thankful to you, and you're like, you know, whatever, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's easy to not believe someone when they're thankful to your face. But when they're thankful about you to someone else, that makes an impression. Because someone might lie to you, but why would they lie about the good things about you to someone else? You know what I mean? And so I want you to talk behind each other's backs about how appreciative you are of each other. I just want you to constantly be putting good things into other people's ears about those people, because that's the thing about it, is it all comes around. It all comes around. But we need to start spreading the good stuff. And I just kind of want to try that. Maybe we'll have our own social experiment here at Epic Church. Let's just find ways to be grateful for each other and to be grateful to each other and about each other to other people. And I just want to know what that does. You know, I want to hear stories about this, about what gratitude does in your lives. But, you know, I think it's easy for us to miss that. You know, it's kind of like watching the news. When you watch the news, normally it's bad news, right? Like 90% of any news broadcast is going to be someone died, or someone got sick, or someone sued, or politics, which is bad in itself. It's all bad news. It's all stuff that makes you go, why did I watch this? And honestly, because that's the way our society works, that's the narrative we start passing around, is everything that's wrong with the world. And I don't think that's who we are as Christians. You know, when I read in the New Testament, I constantly read people like Paul saying, do everything without complaining. And yet I find that that's my narrative, is I'm a complainer. So I just want to see gratitude win, I guess is what I'm saying. And so be grateful to people, be grateful often, and be grateful behind their backs. But this is a time for us to come to communion. And communion is a time for us to just give thanks for what God's done for us. And when I come to this table, it's hard for me to come to this table without being thankful. You know, because this whole table is about someone who died for me. It's about someone who just gave their lives for me. Gave his life for me. And And it's amazing how often I can come to this table more like one of the 9 instead of like the Samaritan, you know? Sometimes I can come to this table and just go, well, yeah, well, of course Jesus saved me. I can come to this table and just kind of take for granted the whole experience. I can just go, yep, I'm going to take the bread, I'm going to take the cup. Yeah, thanks, Jesus. I got to think about where I'm eating lunch. You know? My mind can be somewhere else. But my mind needs to come here. It needs to come back to this table. It needs to come back to what this table's about. And honestly, I can't come to this table without expressing my gratitude for what God's done in my life. I mean, when I first moved to Wichita, I never had Epic on my mind. People ask me that all the time. Oh, so when you came, you moved to Wichita for Epic? And I'm like, no, I didn't know what an Epic was. I never had it in my mind that I would be a church planter. And honestly, I thought I was done in the ministry when I moved here. I really wrestled with that for a long time. I just thought, man, what am I going to do now that I'm not a pastor? And that was discouraging in itself because I look up like what pastors do when they're not pastors, and it all came down to like selling insurance. And I was not very passionate about insurance. I don't know many people who are. Anyone just like, man, life insurance, you know? But that was hard. I felt totally lost. And man, when we moved back here, I had no idea why we were moving here. You know, I felt like our time in New Mexico was done, but I didn't have a reason, you know. I didn't understand, why was I coming here? Why were we coming to Wichita? I mean, I knew that we were going to be closer to family, but I just couldn't understand, what was God's plan in this? I thought I was going to be a pastor. I thought that's what God was calling me to do. And it was a couple months after being here that all of a sudden we got the call about Epic. And man, it's changed my life. I mean, this place has changed my life. And it's changed the way I thought about my calling. It's changed the way that I thought about my ministry. You know, all I can say about this church is how thankful I am, you know. I'm thankful for Steve and Sherry. You know, they're leaders in our church, and they're right now back with the children, you know. I hope you guys know how much they love you. I hope you know how much Steve and Sherry love you, how much they pray for you, how much they care about you, how much they just spend their time hurting for you when you're hurting. I mean, their leadership is crazy. In all my time, in all the churches I've worked in, I've never had leaders like them. Never. I'm thankful for my staff. Man, every week, Tim's here setting up. He leaves work on Saturday, he comes here to set up so that we could be ready to worship together. You know, and Becky, same thing. I mean, Becky came into a children's ministry that was barely running. And she took that thing. She started out just as a volunteer, didn't get a dime. And she just said, no, our kids need to learn about Jesus. And man, we've got 3 classes going on. We got volunteers. I mean, she just does an awesome job. You know, Jamie has stepped in as my administrative assistant, and she's just getting stuff taken care of because I'm a klutz and I lose things. And every week she's like, David, I need these things because you are bad at this. And I'm like, I know, but she's good at it, you know. You know, I think about all of our volunteers. You know, every week we have people who put this thing together. Every week. I mean, we got people who work with the music, the sound, the slides. We've got all these people who week in, week out work with our kids. And what blows my mind that I'm thankful for is that you guys come back every week and hear me preach. There was a pastor I talked to once, and he said, Dave, just be glad that anyone shows up and listens, that anyone wants to hear about Jesus. And man, I'm so glad he told me that, but it's true, I mean, that's the highest honor for me, that you all would let me be your pastor. I mean, it overwhelms me. And I think what I'm most thankful about here is that, when we came to Epic, man, I feel like we were adopted as a family, In a lot of churches that Tamara and I have worked in, we're the hired help. Stuff is, well, we got a pastor to do that. But at no point in our time here has that been who you have been. I mean, you guys have been with us every step of the way. Anytime we needed something, you were there. Even when we haven't said what we needed, we get people who will be like, well, no, we're just going to babysit for you guys this night. And I don't care if you like it, get out. Like really, we've had that. We've never had that in our ministry anywhere we've been. I mean, we're loved here. Sometimes people say, hey, well, what do you think you'll do after Epic? I'm like, what do you mean after? I mean, this is my family. This is my family. I look forward to every Sunday that I get to see you. I look forward to my connection group, getting to see them. I look forward to my outreaches and being with those people. Any excuse we have to get together, I'm all about it. Because I got to see you guys. I love seeing you guys. This is my home, I love that you guys go out and serve hot chocolate on a raining, freezing, ridiculous Thanksgiving night. I love that you guys just all put your food together and fed 76 people on Thursday and fed those same people over and over again on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and Saturday and probably again today. I love that you guys just love people. It is so easy to be your pastor. So thank you. And so I get to come to this table today in total gratitude. Gratitude to God, gratitude for how He brought me here when I didn't know why I was coming. And every day since, how He's just been faithful in giving me a family like you guys. And so I invite you to the same table in gratitude. I invite you to the same place to look at your life and to see where God has brought you. And I don't know what that is in your life. I don't know what He's provided for you, but I know He's provided for you. I know He's provided for you because you're here. And so come to this table in thanks. Eat and drink. Give thanks to Jesus for His blood. Give thanks to God for the things He's done for you. Tithes and offerings, that's all about thankfulness. That's all about the fact that God has provided. I don't know what it is, but I know you need to come here in thanks. And so while Tim's playing, I'm going to pray. But we invite you to come and to eat and drink the body and blood of Jesus that was given for you. To thank God for what He's done for you. Father in heaven, I'm just so sorry for all the times that I've just taken you for granted. For all the times that I have been blessed by you over and over again. And for all the times that I've just said, thanks, and just walked on by, that I didn't stop, that I didn't turn back, that I didn't fall at your feet and say thank you. God, just forgive my selfishness, forgive my pride, forgive my ungratefulness. And God, just heal my heart. God, everything you do is for good and for us because you love us. And so, God, we just come to you in thanks this morning. Thank you so much for your Son. Thank you so much that he died. Thank you so much that he lives. And God, thank you so much that ever since you gave your life for us, that you have been working still to give us good things. God, just open our eyes. Open our eyes and let us see everything that you've done for us. God, let us look back on our lives and see how you have been working and moving to bring us to where we're at right now. And God, just give us a spirit of gratitude. God, I love you. God, I praise you. God, I thank you. And I thank you in the name of Jesus. Amen.